tips which you can follow. So with that, we want to get into the agenda part. We just spoke about some parts of the expectation. Again, expectation management is key for any project manager. We start with expectation management in this session as well. So while talking about any leadership session, it is important to understand that there will be a lot of avenues to which we can use to reach there. But which is the best avenue we can follow on, which is the best way to reach there, and how faster can we do, is some of the questions which often keep coming. More so from IT industry, where project management is more a career advancement based on experience and not based on, many a times, well, not based on the actual qualities required. So there we need to break the ice and see how we can instill these qualities with people to make sure they understand it is not just a role which you play based on your number of years of
Mr.
experience in the
Kithari,
industry.
I would
Also
like
you
to
need to have,
interrupt you. Are you using a Mac?
no, I'm not using a Mac. I'm using a Windows system.
Okay, can you please click on hide control panel because it's still visible.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's better now.
Thank you. The best way to reach there, along with the skills that a project manager would require more specifically in an IT industry, and also we will talk about areas where even a person from non-IT industry will be able to use. So who are the target audience for this particular session? And without specific target audience, it's going to be a confusing approach as to, who is he talking to? Who is he advising this about? And is this really something I really wanted to hear about? So these are the questions which may come to you. So let's talk about whom I really want to address in this particular session. Anyone who wants to grow in their career, the person to whom this presentation is addressed. It can be anyone. And now you can ask a question. You're talking about leadership, and all of a sudden you're saying it's going to be anyone. How does that match? No, it doesn't really. But any growth that you have from one level of mindset to the other level of mindset is a growth. That movement is a growth, and that growth will lead you to leadership. And that's what we are going to follow here as well. Apart from the specific group which really focuses on career growth, I also intend to address to project managers, seasoned program managers who have years of experience in managing large projects, including extremely large infrastructure projects which are going on in India and abroad, IT project managers and program managers. And there are instances where, I've taken some tips from even movie makers, which brings us some project management flavor when we come into this. Mid-level management group is another area of people who will be really interested. I know what it takes to be a manager. I know what it takes to get things done, but how do I get into leadership ladder? So that's another group which I really want to address here. Why should I listen? I think we spoke about it just a few minutes ago. Why should I be listening to this really? The intent is to see how the growth pattern can be channelized into a much easier path towards leadership, how the individual effort can really help a person motivate himself to grow into the leadership career. So we'll talk about a few more things during the course of the session, and we will get into the real content which comes later as big questions and reinventions before we move on into realization. So that's how I've structured this session. So let's move on. We talk about what is covered here. As I said, we are going to talk about the path, which is more specific to project management group, but definitely, yes, it will also address people from the other areas who want to really grow into their career. A lot of places where we have courses on project management, they do talk about a lot of different skill sets, a lot of soft skills. There are a lot of jargons which come in. They start bombarding us with jargons. And now I have all those things. I have gone beyond that. I have attended many of those trainings. Now why is that? There's something I still feel missing in me that I really want before I could say, yeah, I'm ready to take it up. what is that which is missing in me? What they teach there really makes sense, but finally it looks like it did not make sense to me. I don't know why. So what do I do? That we will go through today. So moving on, while we start this presentation, I want to take you back into the journey as how we are all into this game here as project managers, as senior managers working in different organizations, IT and non-IT. Now this is a group which is probably around, say, 35 plus. And for those who are really younger than that, please apologize. I'm just making an average here as 35 plus. And this set of discussions here will also talk about more a fundamental level approach rather than a person who's having heavy experience. So for those who are having heavy experience, yes, there is something in this presentation for you as well, but I'm taking a fundamental approach here to address everybody in common rather than isolating anybody. So please apologize if some points are very light for you guys, the experienced professionals who are here in this call. So let's take a look at how we are all here today. This 35 plus group. These are all the 70s and 80s born people who are coming from that particular time frame, have seen India as a different place. India during those times was not the same. I still remember 1970s and 80s, job market was not as great as it is right now. It is uncomparable to what we are seeing right now. The economy was not this great. We had a completely different setup at that time. In 1970s, we had the emergency. And it grew on to 1980s where there was a lot of rush for jobs. And when they talk about jobs, mostly it was a government sector job, the public sector jobs, or probably something into the insurance. And the famous insurance company at that time was only LIC. So this was the job spectrum available during that period. Now what happened at that time is most of the previous generation people whom we saw, whom we looked upon as we grew, they were all into the public sector work. And when we talk about public sector, there are a lot of things which comes along with it. It's a great place to work because that's the place where we have a lot of project management activities, large project management activities. There's a lot of authority which comes with you when you're a public sector employee, and so comes a lot of responsibility. As we have experienced the decades past, we have seen that large projects keep happening. When you're in a public sector job, you enjoy the job than thinking about a rat race. So the understanding of how the job, how a person works in the job is completely different. The requirement there is completely different. And mostly the mindset of people who went into a government job during those time frames is, yeah, I'm settled for life. And perhaps even my life, there will be some pension which is becoming. So that is the mindset with which people were into those jobs. And we all grew up seeing people like that. Well, at least 90% of us. Now post that, what happened? When we started growing towards the 80s and late 80s, things started transforming a bit. We were able to see the rupture which was happening in 88, 89, 90, and in 91 the economy really opened up. This was the time when the economy opened up across globe, and for us we were able to transact a lot of business with multinational companies, and that was the start. And before this start, most of us were in the school. We went through a schooling process where the exposure was limited only to the books that were given to us. And of course, unlike now, the books were available to us right on day one of the schooling days. In any particular academic year, we did have the books with us on right time. And our visibility was stuck only within that book, probably 100-page material. And that was supposed to be something that we should learn. And that is all we were expected to do. With all the other media items not available to us, except the newspapers, of course, it was very difficult for us to even think beyond. So these are people who really grew with that kind of a background. The focus was more into understanding what's given in the books. Well, that is debatable, but still, that is what we were expected to do. Reproduce answers. And finally, we came out probably missing out a bigger picture. What do I do after going out of this place? What do I do after going out of my school? Well, somebody guided me. You became an engineer, and you became a doctor, and you're well settled in life. That's how the thought process was. But unfortunately, the big picture which was required by an individual was not available. And again, I'm talking about that 90% case where it was not available. And you finally became a doctor or an engineer, and then you moved on in your career. So this knowledge gathering phase which happened during your schooling, whether it was in your early school days or into your college days, there was limited exposure which was available. Then comes this another concept called society. Now we all grew based on the experiences we have had, along with our schools, along with our societies, which formed our basic exposure areas. The community-based societies was a major concept during those days. If you see most of those 70s and 80s time frame, you could see the communities staying together. We had joint family systems. We had a wonderful time. Definitely a wonderful time. We all knew what a family means. We all knew how it all comes together. But what we missed there is what is beyond this circle that we are seeing here. We all got stuck to that ring fence that we had. Somebody put that ring fence, and I don't know if it is an artificial ring fence, but there was a ring fence, and we were all stuck into that ring fence. We all came out of college probably and started working, and when we started realizing, oh my God, the world is really, really bigger than what we think. This is not actually what I expected when I came to the job. And I'm sure most of you would be agreeing to me when I say this. And this is part of the culture. Our culture really expected us to work within the ring fencing that artificially came along with us. Whether it is us or the previous generation, that's how it was. And now we all of a sudden came into an environment where we started working and we started gathering real world experience, meaning you're left to do things by yourself. When you're left to do things by yourself, there is a lot of places where you start accomplishing things as well as getting dents on yourself. And this is what counts as experience. Experience is a great teacher. And for most of us, this experience started when we were in our early 20s. And this experience is the one which is going to guide us along through. As I said, the earlier ones we were struck with our books, and probably they were not really that great applicable when we came into the industry. I'm sure most of you would agree that we are probably not doing what we thought we should be doing or what we really read in our books during our school days. This is far different than what it is. I can tell you an example, and this is more specific example to people who know Tamil. And I'm not going to talk Tamil right now. I know it's an international audience here. So, but I'm going to give an example which you all can understand and appreciate. The Tamil culture has a literature called Tirukkural. It was written by Thiruvalluvar. So when most of the kids in school in Tamil Nadu, they all read this Tirukkural as a part of their subject. And what Tirukkural really teaches you is how to be a straightforward person, how to lead a clean life. And this was something which is applicable across time frames and across cultures as well. Now what this literature really teaches people is to live a straightforward and a clean life so that you will have sanity in your own life. And when you have sanity, you don't have to worry anything, or you don't have to be afraid of anybody else. Now when this sanity really grows to the entire community, you have a better society. When a society is good, you have a better country. And so the theory goes. Obviously this was translated into several languages. A lot of people follow that, so on and so forth. Wonderful literature. Now why am I talking about Tirukkural here? There is a reason. When we all came out into our experience gathering process, into the real job life that we are leading, we find that it is very difficult to really stay and live by the words of Tirukkural all the time. And that's what real life means. Because right now, in this kind of environment that we are living in, there are a lot of pushes and pulls that we are subjected to, but yet we are all expected to do the right things. And that experience is what is creating a lot of tension within people's mindset. Now, count in the pressure that's coming through this process. Count in the limited exposure people had because of lack of visibility, lack of big picture during their schooling days, and inability to think beyond their societies. So this is a cultural change which has happened to people. And on top of all this, now you've seen people who are working in government jobs and having a peaceful life, coming back home by 5:30 in the evening, so on and so forth, and you were expecting all these kind of things when you went into a job, and all of a sudden things changed in the 90s. And you have a society which is now looking at, a lot of job pressure. You have excellent amount of infrastructure available to you to do certain things, but again, you need to go through all these things in a very fast pace. So all these put together brings in the pressure into one person. Now, why is Ketari talking about all these old days here, 70s, 80s, and 90s? What is the correlation between this topic of today's discussion and what he's talking? Yes, I do have a topic. Because experience or your current nature is something based on your experience and your background that you're coming with. And if you remember, I was talking about the 90% people who are coming in from a fundamental background, not about the very experienced or highly exposed people. Now, this set of people, the 90% people that I'm talking about, have come in from that kind of an experienced background. For them in the 90s, it's a big shift. When I meet a lot of project managers across the industry segments, I get one question very often. Ketari, I'm in my mid-30s. I'm entering my 40s. What do I do? How do I grow into my career? This has been my experience. Then the first question I ask is, where are you coming from? What is that? What's your background? What's your experience? Yeah, I worked for so-and-so company. I've done that. I've done this. I've been in this college. I did my engineering there, and so on and so forth. And then again, when you drill down deeper and deeper, you could find that there is a ring fencing under which this person was developed on. The first thing which is very important to understand is that ring fencing was existing on us for a long time. In my very humble opinion, that understanding of the ring fencing is the first step towards your career growth and leadership. And why is that so? We will see the answer in a few minutes. When this experience comes into you, when this understanding of a ring fence was existing within us, an artificial ring fence was existing within us, when that understanding sets in, what comes to you is a level of maturity. A maturity which will help you understand that, yes, I did not know certain things earlier. Now I have the exposure to learn about those things. And that maturity is the key to get your car onto the path of leadership. Unless you get that maturity, you're probably going to be sitting on the driver's seat. You're probably going to be pedaling the gas very hard, but you're not going to see your car move. The reason is, if you don't have this maturity, you have not released your handbrake, you're not put your gears on. And without which, obviously, the car's not going to move. So it is essential for us to understand about these cultural backgrounds that we are carrying it. Call it a baggage or call it a blessing. Either ways, it is important to realize. And now there stands the person. Okay, Ketari is talking about so many things. I'm confused. And if you're confused, I have achieved my target. That was the intent. Now, here's what we're going to see going forward. You've seen how we have grown up, how we have gathered knowledge, how we have gathered experience and come into this level, and probably started thinking about the maturity of that specific concept of ring fence I was talking about. Probably you had this concept already in you, but I'm just refreshing it for you. And with this maturity, how is this going to really take me into leadership path? Let's talk about it.